What the hell is this?
Greetings, fellow mortals. Just a reminder saying it's just my opinion is for cowards. The internet is not a nice place. I'm not going to try to set myself up as a casualty of the trolls. While it's not my favorite series in the whole world, I do in fact like Adventure Time. It took me a few tries to get into it. I stopped multiple times when tree trunks just randomly popped like a balloon. But my wife actually got me to keep going and push into when the show actually starts to get good, with actual lore and character development. It went from being a show obviously made while the writers were high out of their minds to a good show where obviously all of the writers were high out of their minds. It wasn't perfect, but I was super impressed with the lore that these creators crafted. In many ways, it had one of the most intricate and complicated timelines I've ever seen in fiction. Most series can't handle jumping through different time periods and universes. We know how Ooh eventually ends up, but the stories we watch matter to us because we're invested in the people involved. That's why people care about the distant land epilogues, while knowing what the world is like thousands of years into the future, and still care about the people involved with those stories. And Distant Lands did a far better job tying up a few storylines than the original show ever did. I swear, they had no idea what to do with Finn or Princess Bubblegum at the end. They kept going one way and then turning into another way without a whole lot of consistency.
You're just swerving back and forth. Turn one way and stick with it, Tina.
But obviously there were a few storylines they meant to save for future installments, one of which was always meant to be Fiona and Cake. Based on how the storyline ended in the show, the creators were obviously telling us that there was more to these characters than being fanfiction versions of Finn and Jake, which, they technically still were in the end, but it was way more complicated than first brought up or anyone could have imagined. We had no idea about the truth besides that something was beaming the stories into the Ice King's head. Personally, I just assumed the Crown was finding a signal from an alternate universe and beaming it into his reality. And I was kind of right? Well, not really. Spoilers ahead. Having the source being a very bored Prismo writing fanfiction for fun was a great twist that made perfect sense. After all, we knew he was capable of creating alternate universes, which stuck around even if they were fixed later. As soon as I saw Prismo, it clicked in my head. Oh, he was beaming the universe into Simon's skull. I had no idea that he was making the fanfiction himself or that it was unauthorized. Luckily, the writers of the show brought it all together in a way that made perfect sense. For the first time in a while, I had no idea what the truth was completely before I saw the full details. It made me want to slap my forehead. Yep, this one's on me. I should have seen it coming. It also made perfect sense why Fiona's universe became so mundane. It connected everything together perfectly. Fiona and Cake's reality and their struggles to become what they were seemingly meant to be came together flawlessly. It also helped that the writers connected them to Simon, who is probably the most sympathetic, likable, and relatable character in the whole series. The end of Adventure Time left me a little bit bitter because I felt as though the authors denied him his ending. It felt like they did the wrong thing for Simon's character, not giving him the closure of death. And oddly enough, the writers seem to agree with me in at least a little bit of a way. They built upon that idea, that Simon felt like he shouldn't be around anymore, that he didn't get a happy ending. In a way, he felt bitter to Betty for taking his sacrifice from him because he's always been the guy that's been sacrificing for hundreds of years. It's how he defined himself, but that was done. Now it was time to live a normal life, and Simon could not handle it. Not with the human city, not with the people of Ooh, and not even with Finn's help. And focusing on him coming to terms with his existence and finding happiness in the time that he has left was a great way to bring in an audience who might not have cared about seemingly fan fiction level characters. The pacing was absolutely phenomenal. The first few episodes were all about world building and establishing where the characters were at this point in their lives. Showing Fiona and Simon both be in great depressions helped us understand how broken they felt after the crown was removed. They struggled to come to terms with their lives. All the while, the intrigue of the truth of the situation and the seemingly countless cameos kept the viewers interested. By the time the actual plot was taking shape, everyone was well invested into the characters enough to go along with the crazy adventure. Multiverse stories are often overdone at this point. They're just thrown in because they're popular. There's no real point to them other than the random cameos and to make it so that dead people can come back. Now, Fiona and Cake does all of this as well, but the other universes are used in a way to actually move the plot and the themes forward, to develop the characters and show the parallels between the different realities, and to show us just how important Simon's use of the crown truly was. If he was not around to contain the madness of the crown, terrible things would have happened in his universe. Finn would have gone on a rampage. A more selfish Simon would make others suffer for him. Another person would have abused the power and Marceline. Each miniature story showed us how important Simon was to making a positive outcome for Ooh, even if he hated everything about it.
I hate my life. I hate your life too, dude.
Fiona and Cake's story followed Simon's as well. They had to understand that this magical world that they were a part of was over. They had to accept their mundane existences. Like with Simon and Betty, the choices were already made. There was no going back. It was about making the best of the current situation. Sure, you can look back and see how things should have been. Many people should have been less selfish, but that's not where we're at anymore. We have to live with how things are now. There isn't a previous save file to go back to. You're not the hero you think you are. It's just normal life. And this is a lesson that a lot of people in real life need to learn. The themes oozed out of every pore in the show, and I loved how much more graphic everything was as well. We saw gore and violence in a way that Adventure Time always wanted to show. Never forget how dark things could get in the original run. On HBO Max, the writers could get away with whatever they wanted to do, but they had enough restraint to make it feel like a real evolution, like a proper step forward for the world. If they went too far, they would have seemed like giggling little middle schoolers, happy that they got away with saying a bad word in class. Kind of like with The Boys, but Fiona and Cake was brilliantly done.
What? She just put a rock in a bath! Can't you see I got a foot here? Oh!
And it helped that everyone felt like they were the heroes of their own story. Prisma was obviously even more hurt than Finn after Jake died. He was super lonely. Gary and Marshall Lee had a phenomenal romance story. Jay and Destiny were well done as well. I even liked the squirrel whose name I forget off the top of my head. The other universes were built upon using already established lore. It was great. Part of me wished I remembered everyone and everything from the original show. It's a long series with a ton of characters, so I missed many of the different cameos. It almost makes me want to go back and watch everything from the start. Almost. That is a lot of content. If I had to make a little bit of a complaint, it would be that the wrap-up was a bit fast. The denouement was only a few minutes, if that. I would have liked a little bit more to it. I liked seeing everything happy, but I guess I wanted a peek into the alternate universes as well, and maybe some more details in whose wishes made those realities. But that might have been intentional by the writers. Maybe the creators wanted another show or another season for those realities, just like with the end of Adventure Time. You know what? I respect them for keeping us wanting more. How many times do you leave an experience nowadays finding that you're sick of what you're watching?
That's all I can stand. I can't stand no more.
In many ways, Fiona and Cake feels like the ultimate evolution of Adventure Time. It took everything great about the original show and expanded upon it, while leaving some of its more meandering tendencies behind. There wasn't a random episode where Jake was a brick for 10 minutes. I still remember that and keep wondering if there was some sort of inside artsy-fartsy conceited joke that I am not getting. I want more from the Adventure Time universe, now that they finally got over whatever they did to Finn when he was dating I want more from the Adventure Time universe, now that they finally got over whatever they did to Finn when he was dating Flame Princess, and now that Princess Bubblegum's war crimes have been seemingly swept under the rug forever, we can move on. They can have more interesting stories with very unique characters, because thank God, Fiona and Cake were perfect ass kickers from the start. They had actual arcs and actual development where they had to learn skills. They were written like actual people instead of flawless robots whose only problems are that other people are keeping them down. You're welcome to disagree with me. That's fine. After all, everyone is entitled to their objectively wrong opinion. Please consider giving me a like and subscribing, it would really help me out. And hey, do you like stories about an interconnected world? Then consider giving my LPCO books a try. They are all connected in some way, but you can jump in at any point, unless it's a series, then you have to start at the beginning. But I got 3 books out right now and 3 coming next year. You will not have to wait long for content. Either way, thank you. I appreciate you. Do not despair.